A very good morning to all of you and welcome to the session, the Hindu Editorial Analysis for Proficiency in English. Let us start with the vocabulary part. And before that, today's editorial is all about Russia Ukraine war and the role of India in bringing about the change or the much wanted peace. And when it comes to vocabulary, if you improve your vocabulary, you can answer many exam topics, questions related to exam topics like word usage, word swap, fillers, synonyms, antonyms, meanings of words based on the passage, and also close test related questions. And there are some important words you are going to learn. The very first one, though we have got many a time, ceasefire. Ceasefire, part of speech, noun. A temporary suspension of fighting, typically one that is mutually agreed upon by the opposing sides in a conflict. The two countries agreed to a ceasefire to allow for peace talks to begin. And what are the synonyms? Truce, an important word. Armistice, another important word. Suspension of hostilities. That hostility we have got many a time. Hostile, another word form. You should also recollect words like enmity and antagonistic. All these words should be at your fingertips. Coming to the second word, plunge. Plunge, part of speech, verb, meaning to jump or dive quickly and energetically. Usually, this goes with swimming and diving. To suddenly start doing something with enthusiasm but without preparation. Imagine you start preparing for competitive exams all of a sudden. Then you can say plunged into the preparation. That's a different meaning altogether. She decided to plunge into the project, plunge into the preparation, plunge into the project without a second thought. Synonyms dive, jump, immerse, descend. Dive, jump, one group, and immerse, descend, another group. Antonyms rise, ascend, hesitate. Boost, part of speech verb, to help or encourage something to increase or improve. The new advertisement campaign significantly boosted the company's sales, means improved or encouraged the company's sales. Enhance, improve, raise, amplify. All are familiar words now. I'm sure you all can handle. Diminish, reduce, lower, hinder. But hinder goes with a different context. Bring to the table. This is an idiom I think we have got for the first time. To contribute something of value or importance, often in a discussion or negotiation. In a way, it is nothing but contribution. She brings a lot of experience and knowledge to the table. Means based on her experience and knowledge, she can contribute substantially. Contribute, offer, provide, introduce. Withdraw, remove, take away. Entrench, also an important word, part of speech. It is a verb to establish an attitude, habit, or position so firmly that change is very difficult or unlikely. Entrenched in something means got stuck in something in a way. The company's policies have become deeply entrenched over the years. That means they're not willing to change their policies. Embed, establish, root, ingrain. You can also use the word entangled. Antonyms dislodge, uproot, weaken, unsettle. Indulge, we have got many a time, part of speech verb, to allow oneself to enjoy the pleasure of something, to give in to a desire. Someone has a desire and the person wants to gratify his desire, then he will indulge in something. On her birthday, she decided to indulge in a big piece of chocolate cake. She had the desire to have the chocolate cake, so she indulged in a big piece of chocolate cake. Pamper, satisfy, gratify, that is a word you have to remember. Yield, restrain, deny, deprive, abstain. Now we know all these words we have got so many times, but some people think life is only for pleasures. They indulge in worldly pleasures. Then what do we call those, that person? Hedonist. There's another word, Epicurean. These two words are very important. Articulate, articulate speaker. It can be a verb, it can be an adjective. As a verb, to express an idea of feeling clearly and coherently. Example, she was able to articulate her thoughts on the subject very clearly. Articulate speaker, another combination, as an adjective. This is a typical combination you have to remember. Express, voice, communicate, enunciate. This is also an important word. Enunciation, speaking clearly. Mumble, murmur, garble, confuse. These words you have to remember. This is a simple word. Those are the words. Now, this is from all competitive exams point of view, specifically from civil's point of view. If you take CSAT paper, comprehension is very important. Compulsory paper, all these topics are very important. Vocab, grammar. Based on this editorial, I'm going to enrich grammar, consolidation, vocab, effective English, and the main thing, comprehension skill. When it comes to comprehension skill, if you're good at comprehension skill, reading comprehension skill, you can handle questions based on passage, close test, parajumble, scrambled sentences, all these. Let us see. This is not about that. I could not. What is a stimulus to write this editorial or this article? War and peace. When you read War and Peace, you should understand it is related to war and it goes without saying, quite obvious. But to which part of the world and what are the countries involved? On India and the Russia Ukraine peace initiative, war between Russia and Ukraine, and the peace initiative, potential or possibility of India playing a crucial role in bringing about peace between the two countries. What is the main idea? India is not well placed. Editorial takes a clear stand, a negative stand, and says India is not well placed. In a way, it is a categorical statement. To broker or mediate, a better word would have been mediate, a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. India is not well placed. Once the editorial takes a particular stand, it tries to substantiate or justify. When you read, you understand how and why. Just days after his visit to Kyiv, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's telephonic conversations with US President Joseph Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin have raised hopes that New Delhi is ready to take the plunge, means go deep into that and attempt peacemaking in the Russia Ukraine conflict. A lengthy sentence, but in a nutshell, what does it mean? Based on his visit to Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital, some sort of hope has come into existence. And subsequent to the visit, telephonic conversations with the president of the US and the president of Russia, the idea that India is going to take the plunge when it comes to peacemaking process, that hope has come into raised hopes. It has raised hopes. Mr. Not only that, extension of that, Mr. Modi's travel to the UN in September, where he will meet US and European leaders and possibly Ukrainian President Zelensky again, and another visit to Russia in October for the BRICS summit have fueled those hopes. Why the hopes have been raised? For two reasons. One, his visit to Kyiv. After that, subsequent to that, the telephonic conversations with the US president and the Russian president. And not only that, his visit to, in the month of September, to Europe and his visit to Russia in the month of October fueled those hopes. Raised hopes, fueled those hopes. Here it is in present perfect active voice. Have fueled means actually the word fuel has a negative connotation, and there's one important idiom. I'm sure you all know. What is that? Add fuel to the fire. Means already a situation is bad, you try to make it worse. But here it means more hopes. However, a contrasting word. Those who are boosting speculation or those who are encouraging speculation of an Indian role may benefit from a careful consideration of the circumstances and India's position thus far. Here we can also say so far. In this sentence, you can easily make out the stand taken by the editorial. Indirectly, here there is an idea implied. What is the idea implied in this sentence? The editorial has taken a stand. What is that stand? India is not well placed. To substantiate that, here it is like a caution to those who believe India is going to play a crucial role. It wants to provide the reality why India is not well placed. However, those who are boosting speculation of an Indian role may benefit from a careful consideration of the circumstances, indirectly telling, don't have any hope, look at the ground reality and India's position so far or thus far. To substantiate that, all this information, since the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine, India has remained distant from, has remained again present perfect tense, active voice, has remained distant from the outcomes of what External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar had once called Europe's war. Means what India has considered the war between Russia and Ukraine, Europe's war, and maintained a distance. And any peace process that does not involve bringing Russia and Ukraine to the table for talks. India has remained distant from the outcomes, that is one thing, and any peace process that does not involve. India wants to involve any peace process. India wants Russia and Ukraine to be involved and does not involve bringing any peace process. It kept away from that. Any peace process that does not involve bringing Russia and Ukraine to the table for talks means contribution for talks. They have to contribute because they are the subjects. It had even disassociated itself from the Swiss Peace Summit. It had even first action based on that past perfect tense. It had disassociated itself from the Swiss Peace Summit. While Mr. Modi has said here it is a reporting verb, again in present perfect tense, then you have to recollect one important rule. What is that? When it comes to indirect speech, if the reporting verb is in present perfect, or future, the tenses don't change to a corresponding past tense. Has said that India is, that's why here you see the verb in present form. India is on the side of peace alone. It is not supporting any country. It is supporting only the idea of peace. India is on the side of peace alone. New Delhi has been seen to be partial to Moscow, given its historical ties and military and energy dependencies. Here it says, Mr. Modi has consistently said that India is on the side of peace alone, but that is not the public perception. New Delhi has been seen, here it is in present perfect tense, passive voice, has been seen. What is the perception towards India? India has been seen to be partial to Moscow. Why? Given its historical ties, that is one reason. Besides that, and military and energy dependencies, because of that also, it will need to recast itself. It will need, it is in future tense. It will need to recast itself in a more unbiased image because the public perception thinks. What is the public perception? The world thinks India is partial towards Russia. Based on that, there is a need to recast or change that image. It will need to recast itself in a more unbiased image. Meanwhile, the war continues without pause. It has been going on months together. The war continues without pause, indicating the belief in both parties of there still being military gains to be made. 2022, the war is still going on. Why? Both the parties means Russia and Ukraine, they have the hope they can get military gains. There are some military gains to be made. Based on that, they're still continuing with the war. That Russia launched deadly attacks on Ukraine just before the Modi Moscow visit in July. And Ukraine carried out operations into Russia's Kirk's Oblast just before his visit to Kyiv last week, demonstrate the dangerous power play and messaging Mr. Zelensky and Mr. Putin can indulge in, regardless of their guests' sensitivities. They're not bothered about the visit of the Prime Minister of India, but they wanted to convey a message. To convey that message, they initiated and they executed certain operations. Ukraine did the same thing. Russia also did the same thing. Deadly attacks. With such entrenched positions, means firmly fixed positions, New Delhi must proceed with care because Russia and Ukraine they have taken firm positions. They have entrenched positions. New Delhi must proceed with care if it needs, if it indeed seeks to join the ranks of others wanting involvement in conflict resolution. If at all India wants to get involved, the editor opines it should be careful with care if it indeed seeks to join the ranks of others, like other countries, wanting involvement in conflict resolution, means to bring about a peace. Successful efforts have been few, have been present perfect, active voice, we have got so many times. But one important word, what do you understand from this? Please respond. Successful efforts have been few, completely negative meaning, means nothing. Few means hardly anything, almost nothing. It has a negative connotation. Successful efforts have been few and have required focused agendas. What are those focused agendas? The Black Sea Grain Initiative, the IAEA effort on nuclear safety at Zaporizhia power plant, and the latest exchange of Russian and Ukrainian prisoners. All these things have to be focused on, only then they can think of peace process. India must also articulate, say clearly, its own principles for a ceasefire compromise and lasting peace. Before it get plunges into that process, editorial opines, India must also articulate its own principles, state clearly its own principles for a ceasefire compromise and lasting peace. The Modi government may well benefit from studying India's own history. Now, editorial implies to plunge into this process and to take the initiative, India must look back and consider history, what happened in the past, and learn something from that. The Modi government may well benefit, this is what it means, from studying India's own history. What is that? In the 1950s, Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, at the instance of Vienna, mediated with Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev on troops withdrawal from the northeast zone of Austria post war in return for promises of Austrian neutrality. So he played a vital role in bringing about the peace between the Russian former USSR and also Austria. Editor opines right now India must look into that and benefit from that particular thing. An Indian peace initiative will be further complicated by the proposals Ukraine and Russia have themselves put forth. Though India is, if at all India is going to plunge, the process is not going to be easy. It is going to be complicated, will be further complicated by the proposals of the two countries involved in the war, Ukraine and Russia. Ukraine and Russia have themselves put forth. What are those proposals? Mr. Zelensky insists on a full military withdrawal from Ukraine by Russia first, and Mr. Putin has called for Ukrainian forces to withdraw from regions now occupied by Russia and for Kyiv to formally give up any efforts to join NATO. These are the proposals, these are the demands from the Ukraine and from Russia. So it is a complicated thing. India has to be careful. That's all about this editorial and try to answer these questions based on the comprehension skill and listening skill. Yes, that's good, Tripur Sundari. You have responded. What recent events have fueled speculation that Speculation means what? Guess. India might attempt to mediate in the Russia Ukraine conflict. Prime Minister Modi's visits to the UN and Russia, India's participation in the Swiss peace meet, India's refusal to take sides in the conflict, India's military intervention in the conflict. What is the answer? No one has answered. Are you guys there? What recent events have fueled speculation that India might attempt to mediate in the Russia Ukraine conflict? India's refusal to take sides in the conflict. Very good. Oh, Durga Rao, after a long time. What has been India's stance or stand on the Russia Ukraine conflict? According to the editorial, India has actively taken sides in the conflict? No. India has remained distant from the outcomes of the conflict, clearly mentioned, not supported, not mediated so far. Answer is a B. What challenge does, yes, what challenge does the editorial suggest India faces if it seeks to mediate in the Russia Ukraine conflict? Lack of military power, not relevant. Perceived partiality towards Moscow. Strong ties with Ukraine. Unwillingness to engage in global issues. There's a there's a perceived perception. What is it? India is partial towards Moscow. That is a challenge. Perceived partiality towards Moscow. According to the editorial, what historical example does it suggest the Modi government should study to guide its approach to peace initiatives? India's role in the Korean War, Jawaharlal Nehru's mediation in Austria post World War II, clearly mentioned. India's participation in the non-aligned movement, India's intervention in the Indo-Pak wars. Answer is B. Nehru's mediation in Austria post World War II, after World War II. What does the editorial imply about the current status of the Russia Ukraine conflict? Both sides believe there are still military gains to be made. Yes. Conflict is nearing resolution. Are ready for a ceasefire? No. Answer is both sides believe there are still military gains to be made. That is the answer. That's all for today. But before I wind up, if you want to work on questions, exam topics like idioms, arrow location, and connectors, those are the things I have brought today. Please join 6 o'clock session, bilingual session. There at the fag end of the session, you are going to get all these exam topics and also vocab consolidation. You will definitely get benefited. Do join that session, but you don't have to join first 20 minutes. After that, you join, then you can answer all those questions and get enriched. Have a nice day, and do remember to subscribe.